Hi ocean lovers, welcome to Season 2, Episode number 8 of Dive Stories, brought to you by PADI, helping millions around the world to seek adventure and save the ocean. I'm your host, Ocean Allison, and on today's episode, I'm chatting with marine conservation diver and founder of Ghost Diving, Pascal van Erp. During this episode, Pascal shares all about his experiences removing ghost fishing gear from the underwater world, about the innovative products being created from what he collects, and his fundamental thoughts on how we can all be part of the solution to ghost fishing. All that and more coming right up. Thanks for being here. Ready to jumpstart your next underwater adventure? Good news! We're offering Dive Stories podcast listeners an exclusive 20% off all PADI recreational e-learning courses. With PADI e-learning, you can start your next dive adventure right now from the comfort of your own home before connecting at any time with a PADI dive center or resort to complete your in-water training. Head to PADI.com/courses to select which dive course is right for you and use code PODCAST, that's PODCAST, to take advantage of this exclusive 20% off discount. You're listening to Dive Stories. We bring the underwater world to you through in-depth conversations with inspiring divers from around the globe. Thanks for diving in with us as we seek adventure and save the ocean. Happy listening and happy diving. Today's Dive Stories guest is marine conservation diver and founder of Ghost Diving, Pascal van Erp. Pascal, welcome to Dive Stories, and thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm proud to be on the podcast.
Yeah, great. Well, we're happy to hear it. And we're actually going to start this podcast out by diving right into what we call the Dive 5. And how the Dive 5 works is at the start of each episode, I ask our guest 5 rapid fire questions about their experience as a diver and an ocean lover. So what do you think, Pascal? Are you ready to answer the Dive 5?
Yes, fire it on me. I'm good.
Okay, sounds great. Number 1, where is the first place you ever took a breath underwater?
That's in a local lake in the Netherlands.
Okay, number 2, in one word, how does scuba diving make you feel?
Passionate.
I love it. Okay, number 3, what is your favorite ocean animal?
Octopus.
Nice. Okay, number 4, what is the largest or, heaviest ghost net that you and your team has ever recovered?
That was a single piece of 3 tons.
3 tons. Wow. Okay. And then the last one, number 5, in just one word, what does the ocean mean to you?
Life.
Life. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for answering the Dive 5, Pascal. We're going to get a little more in depth now and jump into the core of the interview. And I want to start out by talking a bit about what ghost fishing actually is, since I know it's obviously a major focus for you. And for listeners that maybe aren't super familiar with the term, can you explain, what is ghost fishing?
Ghost fishing is actually not a working term. It's a generic term. Like climate change, it's describing a problem we have, an environmental issue. Ghost fishing is literally lost fishing gear, which is still fishing around underwater without human interaction. You can explain it also like it's fishing around like a ghost. The world is demanding a lot of fish, so there's a lot of fisheries, and we always say in every single sea or ocean where fisheries are active, there is lost fishing gear. Simply because the fisheries do have sonars, do have radars, do have depth gauges. They can really look from their ship, from their vessel, what is going on down there, but not everything. So they do not always see every rock. They don't always see a wreck. They don't always see the contours of the reef exactly. That means that they often lose fishing gear, and that is actually all fishing gear. So it's commercial fishing gear, and we talk about nets or long lines in that perspective, or recreational fishing gear. It's very often it's sport fishing gear. So the anglers you see along the coastline. But also it's gill nets. Gill nets is both recreational and commercial. And now every single type of fishing gear is lost and will be lost as long as it's used. We find them everywhere, and we found them always. So wherever we dive, we always find fishing gear.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it, and thank you so much for kind of laying that out for us. Now, in 2009, like I mentioned in the intro, you founded your nonprofit organization, Ghost Diving, which is 100% driven by volunteer technical divers who remove lost and abandoned fishing gear from the ocean while also raising awareness about the global issue that is ghost fishing, which, we just spoke about. So I'm curious, what were some of the main factors that motivated you to start this organization in the first place?
Well, 2009, I started with projects around this issue. And we originally set up our foundation in 2012. That was 3 years later. That's because in the first 3 years we were just doing this as friends with each other, and just from the 2 dives a day we made on our Dutch North Sea, one of the dives we completely focused on the removal of lost fishing gear. And that's exactly also the reason why I started the organization, because I could not make one single dive in the Dutch North Sea without encountering lost fishing gear or trapped animals or rubbish or whatever you can imagine. And that was annoying me so much that we just spent our dives on this. And after 3 years of doing that, I realized, okay, guys, I'm absolutely sure that we don't only have this problem in the Netherlands. I'm absolutely sure about that. So I start Googling around, and then you find some reports of the NOAA, of the FAO, and they were all mentioning the term ghost fishing. That was quite the thing what I was looking for, but Google was still not really explaining me where it's all about and where it is all seen in the world. Actually, there were not so many groups active in this. There was one in Australia and one in Iceland, and that was basically it. So I contacted everyone who was related to this topic, sent them all emails and tried to get some information. I got quite some enthusiastic response back, because people really like to share the issues they encounter on the water. And with that information, I decided to register a domain name, ghostfishing.org, those days. And with that domain name, it was actually the main purpose is to create more awareness about the problem. I collected all the initiatives I could find. I put them on that website, and people who are looking for the term ghost fishing came to that website and could see in which countries what actions has been taken and where we find lost fishing gear. Of course, including a lot of explanation about the term itself, the problem, the issues, the animals which were, who are suffering from this problem, etc., etc.
Yeah. And so, with a big part of ghost diving's mission being to spread awareness, like you mentioned, one thing I super appreciate is that on all your dives and expeditions that you make, you bring with you work with professional underwater photographers and videographers so that they can document your actions and thus share it with the public. And subsequently, I've seen some really, stunning images and video clips over the years of the work that you and your teams do. So I'd love if you could describe, sort of paint a visual picture for our listeners of what the scene is like when you're removing a large ghost fishing net from, a shipwreck or a reef.
I can grab an example, actually. We had a shipwreck once. It's called the Portugal, and it's located in Makronissos in Greece. And we contacted a local there, and the local said, actually, we have a dual wreck here, and we don't even know how it looks like. We know that it's that wreck, but we don't know how it looks like. We completely covered with wrecks, with fishing nets. Okay, that's cool. So we went down there. We managed to remove in 3 days about 70% of that net, and the whole shipwreck came under it, popped up under it. But how the scene looked like, and this is really impressive. The moment you start lifting a net, we always make a plan. So we first do a survey dive, and we try to imagine how we can lift that net where it's stuck, what's the best way to start, and then how to continue. And this is all very much teamwork. So this is a really, really complicated and very detailed process. And when the net starts lifting up from a shipwreck or from a reef, then it's a sort of theater. We have a few photos of that. You can find them on our socials and on our website. We use them actually quite often to display our work. And then you see us hanging under a complete big net coming from the bottom up to the surface. That's massive. Sometimes when we are at 30 meters of depth or even deeper, the net which is lifting is already hitting the surface and still connected to the bottom. You can imagine that it's really a huge amount of air which is then around you, and it's really impressive. That's actually the word I want to use for this, impressive.
Yeah, I say impressive is definitely a word as well, that I would use. Now, can you give, our listeners a bit of an idea of like, what sort of tools are you using? Obviously a lot goes into these dives, which I know you mentioned, but what kind of tools are you using? Lift bags and whatever else that goes into actually, removing this gear, whether it's a big net or whatever it is.
We have not that many tools actually. What we are very keen on is using big offshore knives. That's what we use already since our start. We found them very rapidly. We got a tip from someone and we use them since then. And they are unbeatable. They're rock solid. They're super sharp, and we carry them because you never know what you encounter down there. I can use this very small knife or a line cutter to cut a long line or a recreational fishing gear, but not a net. Net is sometimes built up with ropes, with sometimes even iron wire and everything. So you need to have a very sharp knife to get through that. That's why we use, first of all, a very sharp and big knife. Second of all is, of course, you mentioned it already, the lift bag. The lift bag is very important for us because that's the way we bring up the nets from the surface. Also cages, but also sometimes car batteries, boat batteries. We find a lot of dumb stuff down there, usually on reefs and wrecks. And of course, we don't leave it down there, so we also bring it up. So lift bags are really, really important for us. Besides that, we use ropes. Ropes we use to tie the nets together so that it's better to handle when you when you lift it up to the surface. That's step one, but it still has to get on board of the ship. So with that, we use ropes to make it a little bit more compact, structure before it's on board. And the last one is we often bring out small mesh bags. PADI Aware is also using them for collecting litter. We also use them. We always have them with us because sometimes you find small things, small pieces, or a big amount of long lines we roll up, and that can be hundreds of meters. But when you have it in your hands, you have to keep it somewhere, and it's not making any sense to shoot that up with a lift bag. So we put it in small bags and we keep that with us. So these are the items we are actually using for lifting and for removing fishing gear.
Yeah. It sounds like, not too many tools, but the right tools. So that seems seems great. Another thing I definitely want to point out is that in addition to being based in the Netherlands, like you mentioned, there are now actually ghost diving chapters in, I believe, 15 or so other countries around the globe, which is so amazing that it's really growing into a global initiative. Because, like you mentioned, when you started out, there was really only a few places around the world where people were doing things to combat ghost fishing. So obviously what you and your teams do require a lot of training, a lot of experience, a lot of preparation, like we just discussed. But what actually goes into a new ghost diving chapter forming and being successful?
In the beginning, we started our diving teams, and we were very strict in how we would operate because, I was already for quite a while a North Sea diver, and I had already my idea about diving. And in our organization, we exclusively work with technical divers. And that's not to exclude people, but that has everything to do with safety. We think that within the diving, for technical diving, you are very used to operating teams. You are very used to standard procedures, standard gases. Everything is aligned with each other. A unified team is really the key word in safety. So if you minimizing risks, is all about uniformation in a team. So if you look at us, we all have the same double sets. We all have the same configuration. It's all at exactly the same place. We actually look all the same. And it's not because we want to look cool, but when there is a problem underwater, you have to understand that time goes fast and every second counts. So the moment that there is something going on down there, someone is entangled, someone is out of gas, or whatever what is not working, what should work, then I want to think within a split second. I do not want to lose time by searching for equipment for my buddy, for my teammate, or to think about how should he use his equipment, where is that attached, where is that connected. That has to be muscle memory for me. So the moment I have to work on a problem, I have to solve a problem, we have to think fast. Every second is one, and this is the reason we use technical divers. There's also there's also back in gas. We always use the same gas. That means that when a team is on board of the ship, and we have separate teams of 3. So let's say we dive with 9 people, and we have 3 teams of 3. We jump out of board, and someone has an equipment failure on board of the ship. Without a split second, we can change teams. We can't do that because everybody is using the same equipment and the same gas. Also underwater, when there is underwater a problem, we can even exchange people because everybody has the same equipment, same gas, and has the same diving time. So this is why we choose this way of working, and that was attracting a lot of teams all over the world. Mainly, of course, I mentioned it already, technical divers who already organized themselves in exactly the same way, and they felt like, okay, so we were investing our time and money already for a while in this way of diving, and now we can finally use it for a purpose. Wow, great! So they send us emails, and actually every single chapter you see, we never took the initiative to call them or to contact someone to ask them to become a chapter. Everybody contacted us. And that's great. So now we have, in the meantime, 16 chapters who are all operating according to our, we developed ourselves our standard operation procedures. We have them, use them only internally. We do not give courses to divers. We do not train individuals or whatever. If people want to join us, they can join our team and they will be trained into the team. But the team aspect is always the starting point.
Okay, ocean lovers, it's time for the dive log, the part of the show where we feature an epic dive story from one of our amazing listeners. This episode's listener dive story comes from PADI advanced open water diver Rebecca Reeves-Toney about an unforgettable experience she had in Hawaii. Let's dive in.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Reeves-Toney from Denver, Colorado. After 4 years of being an open water certified diver, I decided to hone my skills and become a PADI advanced open water diver. I chose to take the course through my favorite dive shop in Kona, Hawaii. It was so exciting learning in the underwater classroom. I learned how to glide over the reef while drawing pictures on my dive slate of yellow and black tang, rainbow-colored parrotfish, and of course, the humu-humu nuku-nuku apua'a. I learned how to count kicks and use my compass to make shapes. I came to relish the safety stop while sitting in lotus position. I practice all my previously learned skills, like the mask clear and swipe to find my regulator. I am now a PADI Advanced Certified Diver.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing all about your certification experience with us. I would say that completing your advanced open water course off the coast of Kona, Hawaii, definitely makes for an unforgettable dive. Listeners, if you have an epic dive story to share too, head to padi.com/podcast to record and submit one of your most memorable dive stories for a chance to be featured in an upcoming episode. We love hearing from our global community of PADI divers, so head to padi.com/podcast today. And now, back to this episode. Now, Pascal, I know a question you often get is, what happens to all the ghost nets that you and your team remove from the ocean? And brilliantly, in 2013, ghost diving was actually a founding partner of Healthy Seas Foundation. So can you give us a rundown of what Healthy Seas does with the plastic nets that you collect. And, for you personally, why is it important to be part of this innovative solution?
That started actually in a very practical way. When we started to remove fishing gear, we came back to the harbor, and the only solution what to do with the fishing gear is just dump it into a container in the harbor, and that's it. Problem solved. Let's go home, drink a beer. But that was not really a solution. At one point in 2013, we were contacted by an NGO in the Netherlands, and they came with a brilliant idea. They said, listen, you guys are pulling out the nets, and we have a partner who really, really wants to have the nylon nets you are recovering. Let's talk. So that was actually the start of Healthy Seas. And it all started mainly with nylon nets. That happened a few years after that. We got more partners who were actually interested in the polypropylene nets. That's the PPE. That's a different. We have plastics and different materials. I'm also not really a specialist in that, but I know at least the difference between nylon nets and polypropylene. The nylon nets are going to one of our partners. That's one of the founding partner of Healthy Seas too. That's Aquafil. And the rest, we always look for a solution with other partners. So, and we have now, for example, Bracenet. Bracenet is making those very nice bracelets, accessories, and a lot of more keychains and dog leashes and everything from the nets itself. We are also talking to parties who are now working with pallets, so they bring down the PPE nets, and they make also other products in terms of recycling. So that this is the nylon part is actually the part which we call regeneration. And you can find everything about that term on our website, and the rest we call upcycling or recycling. There are three different ways to get rid of your stuff. And this is actually the way we are doing that, and it's so important because for us it is closing the loop. We do not go home and have a loose end. We removed it, and let's be clear, the most important thing, and there is no discussion possible about that, is to get that stuff from out of the sea. That's the most important stuff. So when it's gone there, the mission is almost completed. Well, the biggest part of the mission, because after that, what happens after that can only get better. That's how I always say it. First step, and that's the most important step, get it out of the sea, and after that, it's only a win. And we are working continuously with Healthy Seas on more wins. So finding more recycling partners, more upcycling partners, more people who want to be super creative. We get very often universities, students, fashion designers. They all knock on our door. They call me. They send us emails. They want to come along, look in our stores. What do you recover? They take a lot of nets from us, and we all give it for free. We don't care. Just please take it, as long as you spread awareness with it. That is the main goal of us. Of course, everything we do has to do with awareness, and this is also to jump back to your point about professional photographers and videographers. Whatever we do on the water, I can remove everyday nets, as many as I want, but as long as I do not have photos from it, it doesn't make sense for me, because what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean. The power of our organization is to show it to the rest of the world, because they don't see it and they have to see it.
Yeah, exactly. And, going along with the, innovations, like you mentioned, all of the different materials and products and textiles that are, being created through, the net collection through Healthy Seas. Just a side note that some of the items actually available on padigear.com, like our rash guards, which are made from recycled ocean plastic, are actually made from a Connell yarn, which is produced by Healthy Seas Foundation and which is collected by Ghost Diving and possibly even collected by Pascal himself. So, just an amazing kind of full circle moment there. And yeah, amazing that you not only are removing these nets from the ocean, like you said, that's, of the utmost importance, but you are closing the loop and just creating products out of this massive issue, creating, positive products. So it's really, really great. And thank you for sharing about that. Now, shifting gears here a bit, Pascal, as a conservationist that's clearly passionate about taking action to help save the ocean, from your perspective, what are some things that, non-technical divers, just ordinary recreational divers that are listening, or just simply people that love the ocean, what are some things that they can do, during their dives or during just their daily lives? What can they do to create positive change when it comes to the issue of ghost fishing?
You don't have to be like us. You don't have to be a technical diver. Every single diver can pick up litter. We all know that the visuals, when you dive in Egypt, I do that very often myself as a recreation, just with my single tank, just hanging around on reefs, enjoying the colorful fish. But I always encounter plastic bags, straws, everything is floating on the water. And I'm actually busying myself the whole life by picking up litter, always. And that's actually what everyone can do. Just be aware, take a little mesh bag. That is always making your life a lot easier, and that's absolutely not dangerous. Just pick up litter. That's the only thing I can give. And in daily life, be aware with plastic. Reduce or even stop using single-use plastic. Just stop using straws from plastic, for example. Just refuse them if they want to give them, or give them back just to make a point. Everybody is a sort of ambassador of their own, and it even goes further in the way we eat. I'm a vegetarian myself. I already don't eat meat for a long time. And I always, also in the talks we give and also in the conversations we have with people, we try to explain them that the reason we are working hard on lost fishing gear is because the demand on fish in the world is so massively used. So if we want to reduce the loss of fishing gear, we also have to reduce a little bit, or look at least very critical to our eat pattern or the food we eat. This is really important. So yes, it's by just be careful with what you throw away, what you use as single-use plastics, and what we eat.
Yeah, amazingly well said. Thank you very much for sharing. And actually, one thing that I don't think we've touched on is what kinds of marine life are you typically seeing that are, entangled or killed by this ghost fishing gear?
Wow, that's a very complicated question, because in the beginning I always thought it was only lobsters, crabs, and some fishes sometimes. But now I do this for more than 10 years. I realize that's actually everything. I've seen squid, I've seen octopus entangled, I've seen jellyfish entangled. Sea cucumbers I've seen entangled. It's ridiculous. Simply everything. I already released several stingrays. We see dead sea lions, dead seals. We see porpoise, dolphins. It's everything. It's just, fishing gear catches everything. Even birds. We find ducks. We found typical seabirds or water birds which are diving down there to grab fish. Sometimes they just grab, or they see a lure or a fish in a hook and they grab that and they stay down there and drown. So actually everything. It's sad to say, but all sea or water animals are affected.
Yeah, wow. Now, with the name of this podcast being Dive Stories, I do ask this to all of our guests. What is one of your most memorable dives that you've ever had?
That's not so complicated for me, because there's only one dive which is really in my head and it never goes away. We have a very nice video of that. Well, nice in between quotes, of course. But at one point in Croatia, I think it was 2019, we were diving on a reef. We're actually using DPV scooters to make further distances. It was quite a big area, and we found a lost gill net, which was still standing on the bottom, but it was at one point very much rolled up, as if something was struggling with it. The moment we came closer, we saw that it was a huge stingray, which was fighting for his life. It was still breathing. It was already heavily damaged because the back was already scratched a lot. You could see that the effect of the net was really damages his skin. But he was really stressed. So the moment, and that was really, really, really touching. The moment we were working on this animal, I think it took us at least 9 minutes before we eventually released it. The moment I was pulling the net and cutting the net itself to release the animal, every time I was cutting, he slowed down. So the moment I was actually approaching it, he started to get stressed. And the moment I was touching him, he's as if he was realizing that we wanted to release him. And that helped us a lot. The video is online. You can watch that. It's really, every time I look at it, I still feel that, I still have that feeling again, that animal realized that we wanted to release it. And he helped us ourselves by staying quiet to get out of that net. And we managed. And that was really, really touching.
Yeah, wow. I can imagine. Very impactful, emotional, and powerful. So thank you for sharing that story. And great to hear that the stingray, got released from the net and was able to continue on with its life. So that's amazing. To wrap up, Pascal, I do want to ask you this. With more than a decade working to remove ghost fishing nets from the ocean, when it comes to a healthy and sustainable future for our blue planet, what gives you hope looking forward? Because obviously the work that you do, I imagine at times can be depressing. What keeps you positive and what gives you hope when you look to the future?
That changed from the beginning we started till where we are now, is the collaboration with the fisheries. In the beginning, when we started with our work, the fishery was really, I can even use the term aggressive. But they were more scared. They were scared of people who want to point out to them that they were bad. And that was maybe in a way also true. We wanted to showcase a problem which they caused. But now we are 10 years later. We work very closely with the fishermen and we understand each other better. They give us locations when they lose fishing nets. They even give us or rent us out their boats the moment we are recovering fishing nets. It's ridiculous how that developed. In the beginning, we seemed to stand right in front of each other, and now we are more or less friends. And that gives me hope. That means that the sector, I was in the beginning thinking, these guys are polluting the whole sea. I now see them as people who really love the ocean in a way, and they really want to take care of it. And that gives me hope.
Well, Pascal, on behalf of our global community of PADI divers and ocean lovers, thank you for removing literally hundreds of tons of ghost fishing gear from the ocean, for your passion for spreading awareness about the issues and solutions that surround ghost fishing. And thank you for joining us on Dive Stories. It's really been so great chatting with you.
Thank you too. And it was an honor. I am so happy that organizations like PADI make effort to expose also other organizations like us. And we also collaborate with a lot of PADI centers all over the world. And these people help us out. And this is really great. I see just one big movement towards the solution. This is how I see this. So I'm super happy that PADI approached me.
Thanks for tuning in to Dive Stories. You've just heard Pascal van Erp, marine conservation diver and founder of Ghost Diving. To learn more about Pascal and his work, you can follow him on social media at suberp, that's SUBERP, and visit ghostdiving.org. Inspired to connect with the ocean further? Good news! We're offering Dive Stories podcast listeners an exclusive 20% off all PADI recreational e-learning courses. With PADI e-learning, you can start your next dive adventure right now from the comfort of your own home. E-learning allows you to complete the online portion first and then connect at any time with a PADI dive center or resort to complete your in-water training. Whether you're just starting or continuing your diving journey, PADI e-learning is an ideal way to jumpstart your next underwater adventure. So head to PADI.com/courses to select which course is right for you and use code PODCAST, that's PODCAST, to take advantage of this exclusive 20% off discount. This has been Dive Stories, brought to you by PADI, Seek Adventure, Save the Ocean. If you love the ocean and enjoyed this podcast episode, please subscribe to Dive Stories in your podcast app and feel free to leave a review. Follow PADI on social media and head to PADI.com to join our community of torchbearers working together to seek adventure and save the ocean. I'm your host, Ocean Allison. Happy diving!